अथ skandha-parīkṣā nāma caturthaṁ prakaraṇam.
अथ skandha-parīkṣā nāma caturthaṁ prakaraṇam. Next, chapter 4, named Exploration of Constituents. So, skandha originally means shoulder or upper back, and from that it means a constituent part, sometimes translated as aggregate. So pancha skandha, the 5 aggregates, the 5 constituents. And so perhaps the most famous teaching of the Buddha, I think he said it shortly before he died, he reminded everybody of it, which is that all samskaras are impermanent. All samskaras are full of suffering, and all dharmas are not self, and atman, without self. And so, to help people contemplate that, the Buddha, from quite early on, I think, asked meditators to contemplate that what we think of as being our self is made up of 5 skandhas, which are rupa, which we say nama rupa, which I translate that recently as psychophysicality. Nama means name, but it says the psychological part, and then rupa means matter or the body, so it suggests the physical part. But I think physicality works well in this chapter as a translation of rupa. So that's the first skandha, is rupa, physicality. So here I am. I'm obviously, part of me is my physicality. That's obviously number 1. But then I'm not just a physical being. There's also vedana, feeling. So if I pinch myself, I can feel pain. So that's not just physicality, that's something is feeling something, vedana, feeling. And then samjna, perceptions. So if I look at that house in the background, my neighbour's very nicely pointed stonework on his house there. I'm not just seeing sensory inputs. I form a perception that it's a house with a nice stonework. And then samskaras are one of the 5 skandhas. So samskaras, as in the Buddha's words, samskaras are full of suffering. Samskaras are impermanent. Samskaras means literally made together. So constructions, confections, that's a very literal translation. Often translated as formations. But the Buddha emphasized the volitional aspect of samskaras. So sometimes they're called volitional formations, or sometimes just volitions. And then vijnana, consciousness. So those are the 5 constituents of a person or a self. And so originally one could think that the point of meditating on the 5 skandhas is to realise that what we think of as a self is in fact empty of any definite things which make it a self. But in this chapter, Nagarjuna is going to take it one step back and not accept that the 5 constituents are non-empty, self-existing components of the self. That would be the wrong understanding, because of course each component, each constituent is also empty. So if we talk about physicality, there is no separate physical body. The there's no body without a mind, no living body without a mind anyway. So that's why we talk of psychophysicality. Then of course psychophysicality is also a convenient fiction, because there's no psychophysical unity separated from an environment. And even if we talk about a psychophysical unity acting in an environment, Nagarjuna also negates that, because if psychophysicality and environment are both empty, we can't even talk about them interacting. So that's the kind of thing we're going to explore. So skandha-parīkṣā, again, parīkṣā means exploration. And I was just reflecting again. Yesterday I considered the translation of Siddharis and Katsura of the last verse of chapter 3, in which they talked about vision being explained, or hearing being explained by vision. And that's the translation of people who analyse things. Their chapter headings are analysis of the senses, analysis of the constituents. So that gives them away. If you think about the difference between analysis and exploration, analysis is kind of something you do when you already know stuff, and then you're splitting it up into finer details. But exploration is what you do when you don't know anything, or at least you don't know what the end of the exploration is. So it's not that hearing is explained by vision. It's rather the act of listening is communicated in full by the act of looking. And that corresponds to teaching in Shobogenzo about Ishin Denshin. So when you practice Zazen together, the mind is transmitted by means of the mind. It's that intuitive communication is what is being suggested there. So that's why I translated Vyakata as communicated, not explained, but communicated. So, but then having said that, of course, I'm putting myself in the position of one who knows when Siddharis and Katsura don't know. So that's not exploration either. So the task is to go against our habitual end gaining. That's what exploring means. It means not being concerned with grasping an end which you don't know what it is yet. Yeah, if you think about what explorers do, they're going into uncharted territory. They don't know what they're going to find. So exploring, the more you think about it, and in light of the real meaning of darshanam, which doesn't mean seeing necessarily. It does include the meaning of seeing, but it means the act of looking primarily, I think. So again, darshanam, we're all interested in realization. Darshana means enlightenment, becoming a view, and that's how we tend to think of it. But I think what Nagarjuna is suggesting is darshanam is primarily an act of looking, which is the same essentially as the act of listening, which is the same as the act of thinking. And that tallies very much with Alexander, how I was taught, not that I learnt it necessarily, but I was taught to give directions without being concerned if they worked or not. Because if you try and feel out if the directions are working, that's end gaining. Trying to be right is end gaining. And as Madhuri Bala truly said, we're all going around the whole time trying to be right. And I demonstrated that nicely yesterday by attempting to give the directions without doing them, and then showing what it's like to give the directions by doing them. And I totally confounded my own demonstration by breathing deeply the second time round when I was trying to demonstrate it wrong. So that absolutely proves Madhuri's point. Trying to be right is what stops the directions working. So ironically, if you try and do them wrongly, sometimes that's when they work. can be a very frustrating and humiliating business. Studying and teaching the Alexander technique. So I'm emphasizing parīkṣā, exploration of constituents. Skandha-parīkṣā nāma, caturthaṁ prakaraṇam. Caturthaṁ, the fourth, prakaraṇam, chapter. And in the recitation on bodhisvara.com by Kashinath Nyāupane, he says at the beginning, ata, which means and so, or next. Ata skandha-parīkṣā nāma, caturthaṁ prakaraṇam. And so, the fourth chapter, titled Exploration of Constituents. So the 5 constituents are mentioned in the first line of the Heart Sutra. In Japanese we recite Kanji Zaibo Satsugyojin Hanya Haramita Ji Shoken Go On. When the Bodhisattva, free in looking, profoundly practiced the profound, transcendent virtue of understanding or wisdom, prajna. Shoken, what he realized, what he saw, was that go on, the 5 skandhas. So on is a Chinese character, quite a rare one, which means something like an aggregate. So the go on represents 5 skandhas. Go on. Kanji Zaibo Satsugyojin Hanya Haramita Ji Shoken Go On Kaiku Do Isaiku Yaku. So go on, 5 skandhas. Kai, totally. Ku, empty. Do, overcome, transcend. Isai, all. Ku, ku is suffering, pain, and yaku, evil, wrongdoing. Kanji Zaibo Satsu, the Bodhisattva, free in looking. Kanji Zaibo Satsu Gyojin, Gyo, practiced, Jin, profound, Hanya, prajna, understanding, wisdom, Haramitsu, paramita, transcendent virtue, Shoken, what was realized, what he saw, Go on, 5 skandhas, 5 constituents, Kai Ku, totally empty, Do, overcame, Isai, all, Ku, pain, yaku, evil, suffering, wrongdoing. And so, how many years ago? 1994, so that's 25 years ago. This was 25 years ago, practically to the day. I would have been working on finalising the draft of this for publication. And so the second chapter of Shobogenzo is called Makahanya Haramitsu, the Maha Prajna-paramita. And so we've got a translation there, the Heart Sutra of Maha Prajna-paramita. And Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, when practicing the profound prajna-paramita, reflects that the 5 aggregates are totally empty and overcomes all pain and wrongdoing. Okay, nothing wrong with that. But then in my footnote, so in a footnote at the beginning of the actual chapter itself, some bright spark here. It's written empty is Chinese character ku. You can see footnote 4. You can see footnote 3 says go un from the Sanskrit pancha skandha. Footnote 4, empty is ku, which represents the Sanskrit shunyata. Well, actually, in this case, it's an adjective, so it would be shunya. Shunyata is emptiness. So that's a mistake for a start. As an adjective, ku means bare, bald, naked, empty, as it is. And that's true, but that's misleading because, see, in Chinese, the character in the so-called onyomi, that's how Japanese pronounce Chinese characters. So ku is the onyomi reading of the Chinese character. But in Japanese, the kunyomi, the Japanese native reading, is kara. And kara, you have it in a phrase like kara ashi. That means barefooted. Ashi means foot or leg. So kara ashi means barefooted. So barefooted means empty of socks, for example, or empty of shoes. So that is one meaning of emptiness. And if you go back to the early Pali Suttas, you can find evidence for the Buddha using the word emptiness in that way. That was the way that I was taught that emptiness means things being as they are. So it says in that footnote, as it is. So that footnote was written in error by me, but I was being a faithful student of Nishijima Sensei. In fact, I was being what he called an empty cup, which is an empty cup means empty of your own idea, empty of your own view. So you're just able to receive whatever the teacher wants to pour into the vessel, you know. So that's pretty much a Japanese conception. Not at all my habitual conception I was taught. I went to a school in Birmingham that was famous, even Oxford and Cambridge, it was famous for producing thinkers. But when I went to Japan, I threw that out the window, and I became somewhat of an empty-headed, empty cup for a number of years anyway. So I saw that as my role, really. I was doing the translation, but Nishijima Sensei was the one whose view we are presenting to the world. So that's emptiness means something as it is, was Nishijima Sensei's teaching, and it's not false, it's not wrong. So I remember going for a walk on one winter's night with Michael Latchford about the time I was doing this translation, and he asked me how I understood emptiness. And I remember gesturing towards the moon and saying, you know, it was very clear night. And I remember saying that, yep, I think it means like the moon is empty in the sense that when we just see really clearly as it is, that's emptiness. And I would also understand, although I didn't know, by that time I was not an empty cup, so I was already expressing my doubts about the importance of the autonomic nervous system. But Nishijima Sensei's fundamental idea was that when the autonomic nervous system is balanced, that's when the world is neither exaggerated nor insufficient. So when your autonomic nervous system is balanced, then you see the moon just as it is. So, as I say, that's not a false teaching, but I think it's only conventionally true, because ultimately the point is that the moon is empty. So the ultimate teaching very much refutes what I call Zen realism, and MMK, as I'm understanding it, as I'm exploring it anyway, seems to be more and more to be a refutation of so-called Zen realism. So kara ashi, it means conventionally, it means being barefooted. Okay, so the feet are empty of socks and shoes. But in Nagarjuna's teaching, being empty-footed, the feet being empty, mean a foot is empty of itself, but full of the rest of the body. So a human foot doesn't exist without reference to the rest of the body. That's something that reflexologists would probably agree with heartily, because they work on healing the whole just by attending to the foot. Skandha-parīkṣā nāma caturthaṁ prakaraṇam. Exploration of constituents. The fourth chapter, named Exploration of Constituents.
अथ skandha-parīkṣā nāma caturthaṁ prakaraṇam